Hello, EBIT students! Or at least I hope you are, otherwise this is slightly awkward. But your lovely teacher, Miss Miller, has asked me to do a Substance Painter tutorial for her, and of course, I must oblige. After all, she is the best teacher. But, moving on. First things first, have your Maya scene open and ready. Now, you have two options when it comes to your object. You can either slap one shader on to everything, or you can individually apply shaders to everything like I have done right here. You can see shader, 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 and inside the pipes too, but I'm lazy to move it. So you have that option and the one big shader. I only recommend doing the one big shader option if your object is off in the distance and not very close to the camera because you will sacrifice your resolution for it. And the reason behind this is because your entire object's UV is going to be shared into this one tiny square. But if you do it individually, you're able to maintain majority of it, if not all of it. But moving on, those are your two options for you. Once you've applied your shaders, you'll take your object, you'll go to File, and you'll export it as an FBX. You can do an OBJ, but I use FBX, so up to you. All right. If you don't have the FBX option available to you, you can go to Plugin Manager and just look up FBX and turn it on. And it should be available to you afterwards. But once you have an FBX export, you can now move on to Substance Painter. First things first, you're going to go to File, New, and for you guys, you'll have a Select Template option. I want you guys to do ASM PBR Metallic Roughness Starter Assets. After that, you'll select your FBX export, and that part is set and done. The only thing I would recommend is increasing your resolution to 2K. You can do 4K, but it's a little heavy. If you're gonna do 4K, I can't really do anything to stop you, so go ahead. After that, your scene should be in Substance Painter, just like mine. I personally don't really use the 2D that often, so I just typically turn it off and only see the 3D. But I do use it every now and again since we have to mess with the UV so that our texture looks nice and all. But once you have your object inside, don't touch anything, don't do anything. The first thing you want to do is go to Texture Set Settings, and you're going to scroll down until you see Bake Mesh Maps. Once you're brought to this window or something similar, I know it's different for everybody depending on the version of Substance Painter. I want you to change the output size to at least 2K. 4K and 8K are overkill in my opinion, but at least 2K, that's a good middle ground. And after that, you're going to click Bake Selected Textures. Now, if you properly UV'd your object, it should look good with very few things wrong with it. But now it's just letting it process. Since it is going shader by shader, it takes a little bit longer if you applied individual shaders to everything. There are little mistakes. I'm not going to fret over it since the camera isn't going to be very close to this scene. And you can just return to painting mode down here or up here. So after you have done that, you can now start applying textures. Since I'm doing more of a realistic textures, I have the luxury of slapping on the textures and boom. If you're going to do a stylized option, here are your layers. You can manually paint it on, change the color down here. That is a time consuming process and I don't have the luxury of that. So I'm just going to be slapping on shaders and then showing you how to customize it a little bit more. Since sometimes you do have to do masking, which allows you to mix multiple textures in one object shader, we can go to our glass texture and isolate it. And I do believe I have a preset glass one. If you're looking for a texture, you can always just browse the Substance Painter gallery. I typically download them on the internet and drag it into the asset folder, and that's good enough for me. I guess I'm going to be reusing the street lamp texture that I have for other scenes. Drag and drop, easy as that. Since we have applied our texture to the glass, I am going to actually turn that off because I do have things back here. But after this, going to use the power of editing to show you a finished product, only resuming back when I have to show you things like masking and whatnot. But until then, I guess I'll see you. Alright, and with that, I am finished texturing. And for the sake of showing you how to auto mask, I'm gonna use our pipe body, I believe. Is this one? Yes, perfect. Alright, so this is definitely gonna be useful for those that are doing one big texture onto everything. And once you've applied a texture to it, you have the option to do a white mask and a black mask. To get this, you're just gonna go over it and right click. These are the main two. You don't really have to concern yourself with anything else. But to show you, a white mask allows you to choose the areas that you want the texture to show. This way you can tell it, I want this part to show. Another thing I want to show you is polygon fill. Something really nice about polygon fill is that it allows you to select part of your actual mesh. This might be amazing if you did a good mesh build, but regardless, here you can apply the texture you want to areas you want. If you realize you might have accidentally added the texture to somewhere you didn't want, and don't want to undo all your progress, to erase it, you just have to go up here and change that to a 0, and now it works like an eraser. But that's the white mask. With a white mask, it does the opposite. White mask removes texture from anything you click. So if I remove this texture right here, I want to apply something else. I'm then able to create a new group, and then I'm going to put on the texture of what I want now. Cosmic X. Something noteworthy. Okay, so with the Cosmic X, it's actually missing a option. It's supposed to be emissive, but I don't have the emissive channel enabled. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to Texture Set Settings, Channels, click on the plus sign, and I'm going to go to Emissive. So all of this will actually emit light in my scene. You know, if you want to do any of these other things, opacity is something you'll probably be messing with if you have glass, so I'll probably apply that. The focus is this right now. So now that I have my Cosmic X texture, I am going to do a black mask, and I'm going to tell it I want these areas to have that texture. And just like that, I am able to have multiple textures in a single shader. Now, if you decided to apply one big shader to everything, the entire time you're going to be doing just masking. That's literally all you're going to be doing. This texture would be on these pipes and I would have to individually click on it. Though you would have the luxury of using mesh fill and telling it these objects, I don't want it to have that texture. Another thing is UV chunk fill. If you have good UV, you're able to do big sections all at once. If your UV is of poor quality, you're going to suffer the wrath of that now. That's everything you really need to know about Substance Painter in terms of texturing. The next thing we need to do is actually export this. File, export textures. You can do PNG. My recommendation is doing EXR. This way you save time in the actual texturing part. So this determines where. You shouldn't have to worry about that. And after that, you're just going to click export. Now we go back to Maya. Now this is where you're going to actually be applying all your textures. So I'm only going to show you one on screen and the rest is going to be a time lapse so that you can see what you're going to be focusing on: color, metalness, weight, roughness, open up geometry, and you'll see bump mapping. If you did something that's glowing, you also do emission. Let's start off with color. you're going to do File, and now you're going to hallway interior, or whatever you did, base color.
Hi, editing version of me. Quick thing to mention, if you decided to do a PNG instead of an EXR export, I want you to go to the color space, go down to utility and change it to RAW. That way you get a more accurate color depiction than sRGB or anything else that you might have. But now we can move on.
Now it doesn't look like much, but that's because we only have the base color applied. Next, you're going to go to Metalness, File, and find the name Metallic. And you'll rinse and repeat. You'll go to Weight, File, and you'll find the height version of it and apply it. Then you'll go to Roughness, File, you'll find the Roughness version of it. I just think it's faster to type it in, but that's because I know what each is supposed to be, so it might take you a minute. But once you get to Geometry, Bump Mapping, and attach the file, you want to change Use As Bump to Use As Tangent Space Normals. Then you'll go to Bump Value, and now you can attach the normal. Now you applied everything to your shader, and you can see what it looks like. Now we're going to go into a time-lapse montage. I am completely finished applying all my textures. And now I'm just going to add a quick sky dome. And I'm going to do a quick render of it just so you can see what it looks like. And there we go, finished rendering. This is what the scene looks like, at least. Hopefully this taught you all the fundamentals you need to know, and you'll be on your way to learning how to become a pro.